Hi Sam, it's been a while. It's really good to see you. Not that we've been speaking for 30 minutes before this anyway. Great to have a chat with you and talk a little bit about, ultimately, find out a bit about EMF camp or electromagnetic fields. And electromagnetic field, is that the correct?
Yeah, the electromagnetic field, to give it.
Yeah. And what about the camp part then?
So the camp part is, well, it is a camp. I think mostly because it's the domain name. So EMF camp came from the domain name.
Okay,
Have electromagnetic field. Field is EMF. Electromagnetic field is the event. It is a camp in Hallam. Right. So yeah, electromagnetic field is a non-profit, volunteer-run camping festival. So run in the UK at the end of the month in far too fewer days. 30th of May to 2nd of June this year in Herefordshire. My name's Sam Machin. I'm a, what do I do? Developer, tinkerer, hacker. Generally build things with phones, do a lot of stuff with making phones work. And as part of that, I run the phones team for Electromagnetic Field. So I was saying, Electromagnetic Field being a camping festival held in Herefordshire. It's somewhere... Festival probably makes people think Glastonbury or Leeds. It's probably not so much that, but equally it's not really like a tech conference. Somewhere in between. So it's held in a very rural environment, in a deer park, so green fields, no permanent infrastructure. There are 3 big top tent stages, so there's no open air sort of band stage like you would see at Glastonbury, but there are 3 main stages and a schedule of talks, so very much like a tech conference. So for the three main days are open, there's they're between 20 and 60-minute tech talks, mostly tech, real range of stuff, some insane, really interesting things. But then everybody, or most attendees, will camp on site. So we have about 3,500 people who will bring tents and camper vans and be camping on site for the week. There's very much 2 sides. Like at daytime, it's a tech conference. At night, once it gets dark, it becomes more of a festival. Lots of lasers, lots of coloured LEDs.
But it's very friendly, isn't it? Like lots of people take the kids and.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's totally family friendly. So probably again a sign of our age, isn't it? So it started back in 2012 with an idea for a group of friends to go camping and got way out of hand. But yeah, so I guess a lot of the attendees, 10, 12 years ago were mid-20s tech people, and now they're late 30s and have got kids. So yeah, we're very friendly. We have childcare, so we have a creche run by a professional childcare firm. So they organise like a whole bunch of kids maker activities. There's a family area with more stuff specifically for kids, but you can also bring the kids, leave them at the creche, and go and do the tech talks if you want. Yeah, it's got a really nice family vibe. It's loosely aligned with the German Chaos Computer Club camp that happens every 4 years in Germany. So that was last year. It's a bit more personal. It's probably a bit harder to convince your boss to pay for your ticket for this one, than it is to go to most tech conferences. Although people do seem to manage that.
I don't want to get into marketing, but if you segment the audience, there's a lot of senior.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the target audience, so from a sponsor, thank you very much, it's the people you want to talk to. These are, the people who are making things, but this is what they do for their downtime more than it's far more, this is what I built as my home project than this is what we built in our business.
I don't want to digress too much, but like hackathons back in the day, I started as an evangelist in 2011. It felt like you got that same sort of audience at hackathons, whereas now, it would be people in their mid-20s in engineering roles. It feels like those sorts of people don't go to hackathons anymore, but they probably still do go to this event.
To EMF, yes, yeah, and I think you're right. And it's also maybe it is, and that's probably where things like the family-friendly stuff has helped, right? Because it's a case of now, instead of being when you were young and single in your 20s and you could go and sleep on the floor of Google for a hackathon. Now you need something you can bring your wife and kids to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
Okay.
so saying I basically I build the phone network. So one of the things we do is we build all our own infrastructure, um, power, internet, water. We have certain bits there, but it's a large deer park, private estates during the years. We have a very fast internet connection. In fact, I think this year it's been upgraded to many gigabits per second. Dark fibre back eventually to a core in London to Telehouse. So we have fibre to the tent, sometimes call it. Better broadband than most of people have at home, probably. Yeah, we build it, and I build a phone infrastructure for that. So it's a combination of the primary system is something called DECT, which if you're familiar with these sort of home cordless phones, well, this kind of gigaset thing, very much like what you would have at home. It's the same phone you use at home, but it's a enterprise system. So we have 30 odd access points. They're called antennas or RFPs in DECT parlance, scattered around the site, and everybody can bring their. So rather than bringing the base station and only having 300-meter range, we have like a roaming DECT network. So you can bring your own DECT handset, register your handset on the network, get a number, connect, and make internal calls that way. We also support SIP, so you can just put an app on your phone. We have a bunch of sort of fixed desk phones mainly for us to sort of manage the event, because the phone system is how we run the event, not just sort of something for the attendees to play with. It's also something the attendees to play with. Matthew Harold, if you don't remember him from Nexmo, he comes. He runs a network called QTEL, Copper Telecom, which is an old-fashioned copper dial-up phone network. So he installs, if you want an analog phone line, he'll fill you out, and he hooks up a whole bunch of things like fax. Fax machines are very popular. So people,
There's a novelty factor in them now,
fax,
right?
and dial-up and all the sort of almost retro telephony. I think he's got some guy bringing an old-fashioned mechanical Strowger exchange this year, like the old click, 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 click.
Oh, okay.
Things like 2 tons and needs to come on the back of a flatbed or something. But yeah, we're going to hook that up. So we have a whole bunch of access networks, and also should, all being well, have a GSM network again this year. So we've done that in the past, building our own private mobile network. We've got some licenses from Ofcom and SIM cards and stuff. And so I sort of lead, coordinate that team and build the sort of core thing, and then a couple other teams can hook in. And the idea is that everybody can build different phone-related stuff that they want to hook up to it. We have APIs, we have a programmable CPaaS system as part of it. And so to do that, we also need to manage phone numbers, which is a fairly key thing. And people need to be able to go on and register their own phone number that they want, 4-digit numbers, and user management. So I built a new user management app, which we kind of nicknamed Numberwang. Which the Mitchell and Webb reference, at least the Brits will get, and we had to put an explainer on the website. But it's our number management app is a bog standard Django web app. Log in, register a user, go in, create a phone number, tell it the type of number you want, whether it's DECT or GSM or whatever, and set your sort of parameters up. There's a few bits of management on there, so it's the kind of the customer service side in telco parlance of managing your account. Now that needs to run, or that we just opened up to the organisation team, and we'll open it to general attendees in probably about a week. But that runs ahead of the event, so that is now up and running in a virtual machine on a data centre somewhere in Slough.
Right. Okay.
And we'll be running off-site for the event. But part of the feel of EMF and the reason is, we try and run all our own infrastructure, and we run our own infrastructure on site as much as possible.
Yeah.
So in about 2 weeks, we will get a refrigerated container cold room, like that you'd see out the back of Tesco's at Christmas, delivered to this field in Herefordshire, which will become our data centre.
I was going to say, most people say that's where you're storing the drinks and the food.
Well, we order 3. We go to a bar supply and we order 3. And we don't always tell them that one of them isn't for drinks, it's for servers. But yeah, so it's the same supplier for the bars and for the data center. So we'll have a refrigerated container, which is our data center, with servers and switches and all the networking gear and everything running on site. And that is where the core phone system will run. So everything that actually handles the calls, and it's all SIP, but it's running. We've rebuilt that with Marcus Noble.
Yeah.
Yes, so Marcus has really helped me out this year as well. Building this new system, so it's all running on Kubernetes. So I have 2 Kubernetes servers, which are currently running actually in my attic. So at night I hear a bit of a whir, but they're currently running at home as our staging environment as a kube cluster, and then all the apps are deployed on there. And that handles actually routing the calls, doing things. So partly, if our internet connection goes down to the site, because we only have one fibre into the site, if we lose our internet connection for any reason, the phone system will still work locally, basically. So we don't put it in the cloud for that reason, and a few other things. That creates a bit of a challenge, because we have our user management, number management, whatever system running on the internet, and our infrastructure core running in a field. Off a single internet connection with a generator power. It's got UPS, but it's certainly not what Amazon would consider an AWS region, this container in a field. So there are potential for it to go down, for it to go offline. So I'm also staging it, because right now I'm trying to build an application and configure users when the data center isn't yet built, which in everything you know about normal development would seem a bit crazy if the production servers are in my attic.
Right, okay.
So we can kind of deploy everything to there. But then what we'll have to do is, at some point in the build-up week beforehand, so EMF opens on the Thursday, but I'll be there from about the Sunday. Around the Monday or Tuesday, we will shut down the production servers in my attic. I'll drive home, pick them up, put them in the boot of the car, drive them back up the M5, and switch them back on in the data center on new IP addresses, and change DNS, and hopefully it'll all come back up. But at that point, so we know we're going to have a 3-hour-ish outage of Windows. And one of the things is, where all of that stuff coming from the web app, kind of when you create a new number and certain things, it needs to provision it down, changes to the production servers. So we do that with webhooks, nicely. But what I wanted was something to sit in the middle and separate it, so that I can insulate the, I'm not relying on the production servers being up when somebody does something on the web app, but I don't want to have to implement all the queuing in my Django application and retries and stuff, because that was a load of effort. And also there's some sort of fan out. So actually Django can just publish an event to a single webhook when a number is added or removed, and then I can kind of route that to the appropriate application, whether it's a deck to a PSTN or groups or whatever. So yeah, that's where I'm using Hookdeck, basically, and that's the piece that Hookdeck has added. It's our I guess message router, message queue. Yeah. So that's super useful, and also it means I have a point at which I can view. So every time something is done on the Django Phones app, or certain things are done, it fires a webhook into Hookdeck, and then Hookdeck takes care of, based on looking at some rules in the payload and some stuff, sending that on to the relevant app. And also,
I was going to say, so you talked about deck to a GSM, so you've got as a property, you can filter that out and fan it out.
Absolutely, it's just a JSON payload that says add this number and its type of service deck, so I can filter that using the filters on Hookdeck to send it to. And sometimes there are multiple systems that need to know about it, of course, as well. So sometimes it's like, if it's a group, actually, if it's a decked number, then the decked system needs to know about it, but also the group system needs to know about it, because you may have groups in it. So there's a reasonably complex set of filters. So I think I've got about 6 or 7 destinations and one source in that sense. Yeah. And also it gives us some sort of auth as well. So there's a token for the requests coming into Hookdeck is validated by one token held on the Phones app, but every one of the individual receiving applications has its own API tokens, which Hookdeck takes care of. So we've got I think a reasonably good level of security with that as well, that you can't just inject.
Yes, I mean, it's an IoT use case because you're deploying it in a field. It makes it feel like but it's not really, right? It's
yeah, I wouldn't call it really IoT. I mean, this is pure middleware.
Right.
It's just it's the thing that's common with IoT is that you don't normally get with most server-to-server stuff is that both servers are in reliable environments and IoT is on an unreliable environment. So one set of our servers are on a more what looks like an IoT type of, potentially unreliable-ish. The network team wouldn't like to say that, but that'll be, not it's not on a guaranteed 5 nines uptime environment.
Right.
But yeah, the messages. I mean, so we still have public IPs, and we're not having to do any kind of outbound connections from the field to Hookdeck. Although you did say we could do that with CLI, I think.
Sorry, say that again.
You said about so we have a public IP and public host names of our servers, but if we were doing from more of an IoT development, I could use something like CLI to do that outbound connection to receive webhooks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, the CLI has been built as a development tool, but you could run it as a I mean, it appears as a destination anyway,
I should do that for development. I mean, I've just exposed local stuff here, but right. I think unfortunately, so we have got permanent or fixed public IP addresses, I should say. For all the servers.
So then you're benefiting from the queuing during that downtime. Planned downtime in this case, but then also if there is any level of something does go down unexpectedly, you've got that queue. These messages will be delivered.
But also I've got a nice web interface and also just debugging, and people will do weird things. This is code I've hacked together in the last few months, and it's never really. You've seen my code.
Perfectly fine, Sam. That was the same as mine.
It's good. People will enter weird things in field. I want to have a phone number that contains emoji in it. Somebody will try and do that.
Right. Okay.
Have I tested for that? That's it. So something will fail, and actually again, and it's been like Hookdeck then will send me an email going, hey, you got a 500 back on this one, and I can go into even in production, I can sort of view events and see errors without having to kind of go in and tail server logs. So that's.
Yeah. I do think the team's done a good job in thinking of the software development lifecycle. Quite often you think about, as an engineer, you'll think about, well, I'm building something, it's got to have a good developer experience then, and it's got to be reliable. But then when things go wrong, but they've done quite a good job in terms of observability, but also error recovery.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's that ability to recover stuff even in production. That's going to be quite helpful. I think it's anywhere where you were basically, if you're going outside of a controlled environment. So I think I would probably use it even if I was going sort of say AWS to Azure or something. If you're trying to do multi-cloud or two different environments, it's one thing having everything inside an environment talking via your own local interfaces. But I think when you're going outside of, even if they're both your environments, if you're going across two environments. Having something in the middle that gives you that inspection, isolation, management, monitoring is quite useful. I can really see that.
I guess this is why we called it the event gateway. But it's really interesting. We're still exploring that. We've come up with this idea of the event gateway. We're not the first people to ever say it. Even the folks at Async API, they were building something called the event gateway that they didn't move forward with. But although we've kind of said, service to service, where the services could be internal to internal, I think where I'm seeing in the conversations I'm having, the value it really provides is when it's bridging two things that aren't in the same network. There is a gateway aspect to it. So
absolutely, yeah. And again, it also gives you another point of managing sort of security enforcement. You can separate the auth. So one system authenticates to the gateway authenticates to the other system. It means that if either end of that gets compromised with a token or something, you've got a point at which you can easily go in and turn. I mean, actually, there's a big red kill this traffic button because we're getting something from here. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in there which is that kind of I hope I don't need this, and I don't plan to need it, but if I do need it, I'll be glad I've got it.
Again, from a marketing perspective, we've been a little bit boring but deliberate, reliable. It's put, there's no point in having this if it's not a reliable.
But also, just if my stuff isn't reliable, if something goes wrong with, we as developers, we're really bad at building for error cases and error scenarios, and you'll never figure anything out. And then you get an incident, and we'll figure out how to solve that when it happens. But I think this just gives you that little bit of okay, if that's in the chain, I've got another place I can solve it in without having to necessarily change production code.
Yeah.
Something weird happens, I can drop a filter into Hookdeck while it's still running, rather than having to go in and rewrite the code, publish it, redeploy and upgrade, blah blah blah, on the server that's getting whatever. So it's an insurance policy. I think that's
that's really interesting. That's a better use case than I thought it was going to be, if I'm honest.
Yes, well, yeah, it's definitely something this app has grown surprisingly from being we'll just have we just need a phone system.
What's happened to whatever you've built in previous years? Because this isn't the first time you've done it.
Yeah, so previous years, and we've used the system called Event Phone. It was a group of people, mostly based in Germany. Eventphone.de, who are fantastic guys. We're still really friends with them. They're coming and helping us this year. So they built the same system for the German camps and the German events. We've kind of rebuilt, modelled on theirs with a few changes. I wanted to do more programmable apps stuff. So we have Jambones in the mix as well, which is our CPaaS. It's an open source CPaaS type platform. Actually, Jambones is running a lot of the call routing. So you can go in and create an application, and that's all sort of integrated. So, hey, you can say, give me a phone number, and you can say, I want a DECT number or a GSM number. You say, I want it as an application number. And it provisions that number in Jambones, and then you log into Jambones, and you can set your webhooks and do whatever silly things you want with that. So it was to give us some new functionality, to give us some more knowledge in-house. Actually, Brexit has been a horrible problem for us as well, because we were so used to sharing a lot of stuff between the German, the Dutch, and the UK camps, and shipping stuff back and forward. Central equipment, all the Wi-Fi kit lives in a warehouse in the Netherlands. Now we have to fill in a whole bunch of customs paperwork to import that. So this is sort of the Event Phone, our version of it.
Is Event Phone open source?
Yes, mostly. But certainly Guru, which is their web app, is there. They use a slightly different method. I think their system uses WebSockets, and the field system initiates a WebSocket connection up into the web app to receive the update messages. So architecturally, that's a little bit different. So they act as a client. I could have done it that way, but then you've got to manage queuing, I guess, on the other end. So on my application.
Yeah.
And that was a big one. I just didn't want to queue anything in the application, really.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that, and the very best of luck at Electro Magnetic Field and EMF Camp